all the first party games day one. And now you're literally taking the biggest, maybe the most important game out of it.
I'm going to say it's going to be split. I think you will have some people, I would say people that have been invested in Game Pass probably for a longer period of time that maybe necessarily wouldn't jump into a game like Call of Duty. So
Sure.
maybe those people, but for the diehard people that love Call of Duty, I don't think this is going to affect them in the slightest. They probably just said, "Oh well, it was included, but now I just got to pay for it straight up."
Like I was doing every other year anyway. Bro, like, here's the thing about Call of Duty. Do I think Call of Duty should be a part of Game Pass day one? 100%.
Hmm.
I absolutely do. And I also don't think that Call of Duty as a lone title should have pushed the price of Game Pass
Pass that.
up at all. As a matter of fact, I don't think that's really why it happened. I think there are some other factors, but I don't think that's really why it happened. And I say that because, truth be told, we all know that the majority of people who play Call of Duty play on PlayStation. There's no two ways about it. The percentage of players that are on Xbox is limited at best, right? By comparison. So when you make the thing that makes Xbox a viable option for people, especially if you've been playing on something other than Xbox, right? You If you increase the price of that in
Hmm.
order to get people to leave PlayStation to come over, what's really enticing about that if you already spend the $70
Hmm.
every year anyway, or $100 once a year every year anyway, right? Are you now thinking about how you can spend that money on other games somewhere?
Hmm.
If you play Call of Duty, there are so many people who play Call of Duty, like the real Call of Duty, like that don't really play anything
Anything
else.
else? That
So you
console.
can't you can't really entice people technically with everything else you get in Game Pass by including Call of Duty,
Hmm.
because all they want to play is Call of Duty. You know what I'm saying? So the rest of the games don't really mean anything to them. Maybe they would play something else, but if they would, are they now going to spend money on those things because they're too busy playing Call of Duty and they don't have to pay for those other games because they're already in Game Pass? So really, it's more like you kind of punished all of the people who were already
Hmm.
paying for Game Pass by increasing the price. And I really think it was one of those things where it was like, well, we have Call of Duty now, so we can get away with pushing the price up
Yeah.
this high. Because the reality of it is, it's not like they dropped the price back to what it was when they pushed it up,
Right.
right? The price was $19.99
Hmm.
and they pushed it to $29.99. They dropped it to $22.99, which ostensibly means they basically just dropped it back to what a regular price bump would have been.
Hmm.
Right? If they'd have come out and been like, "Yep, Game Pass is it's been another year, things are expensive. We're going up another $2." You know what I mean? Or we're going up another $3, which is relatively standard for streaming services across the board. I don't care if you're Netflix, your Hulu, your Disney, your
Hmm.
whatever it is. Every year you basically see about $1 to $2 increase, right? So now that we're back down to probably what we would have had as a price bump, when's the next time we see a price increase? Having just dropped the price to say we're taking this thing out,
Hmm.
and so we're dropping the price down. If you just drop the price and you get people back in, because that's part of what the point of this is, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's see what we can do to get people back in. I know they saw a lot of cancellations. They had to. They
Hmm.
saw people like me. When GameStop was like, "Oh no, we still
Hey,
slinging
yeah,
it
we
for
still said
20."
it
I
no.
went and bought a year's worth of, you know what I mean? So like this price drop don't even affect me. I'm still technically only paying $20 because I bought it and paid out, you know what I mean, for
Hmm.
the next year. So this won't affect me until next year sometime. Which, truthfully, by that time, jokes, could we see another price increase? How soon can you start to creep the price back up before you're right back where you were and
beforehand.
telling people it was too expensive? We had to drop the price. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think we'll see another one at least until the new system comes out, and I don't think it'll be like oh, here's the new system, we're raising the price day one. Like I think we'll see a little bit of
When do
time.
you think we see the new console? Next holiday? Not this holiday. 2027.
Maybe early 2027,
Okay, so you're
because
let's say
yeah,
spring
maybe
2027.
spring, because I feel
You're
like
thinking we see a new Xbox console
just because of
and that
like GTA 6, like I know they want to get that on current gen consoles in the way that it is and eat that money up before they release the new console for you to, either pay to upgrade or have to buy the full version of it.
yeah.
So, but I could see early, like you say, a spring for the new console. Like we haven't gotten an announcement. Well, we got the announcement that it is in the works, it's being making, but obviously no release window, nothing like that as of yet. So I could see the Game Awards once again probably being the place where it does get mentioned. And I feel like if it does take that long and we get to the Game Awards, I don't think it'll be spring. I feel like we may more be looking at the summer than anything, because I feel like from December to like that first quarter, maybe pushing it a little bit,
I
but
I don't know that I've ever I don't know, just from a business standpoint,
mm-hmm,
just thinking about Microsoft's fiscal year and how they try to fit things within the fiscal year to see
mm-hmm,
their summer doesn't really make sense. I just from that like I've never
mm-hmm,
they've never I think Nintendo's really the only ones who could probably really get away with doing something like that. Like, and they don't even really do summer. They tend to do like March
yeah,
now. And you know, Xbox and PlayStation tend to do somewhere between August and like October.
mm-hmm,
You know what I mean? Maybe November. But generally they're gonna try to get out before Black Friday. You know what I mean? If they're gonna put a console out, that's generally when it's gonna happen.
mm-hmm,
As they are closing in on their fourth quarter
yeah,
to see, you know what I mean, a spike. Now they could do something early in like the spring and it hit in their first quarter so that their financials, you know what I mean, get a boost, and then therefore you probably see a boost in sales of other games or something like that. But the
mm-hmm,
truth of the matter is the landscape is so different that like when you put out a new console now, it's not like you're putting out a new console with quote unquote a killer app,
mm-hmm,
because now it is all about, well, I'm just kind of upgrading like I upgrade my phone.
right,
And I like, so all my games should look better and play better, and they're promising all this extra backwards compatibility. So maybe people go back and buy old stuff, but most people are just going to update their libraries and play those. Now,
yeah,
do they want to get the new console out as early as possible to take advantage of the dollars that will be around for GTA 6
mm-hmm,
so that they can then say PS5 Pro is not the best place to play this? The Xbox is, and it is the closest thing to a PC, and you're not getting a PC version for a minimum of a year because they never do that. So, yeah, I mean, I could see that. Can they afford to do an increase to Game Pass to coincide with the
mm-hmm,
new console and GTA? Probably, but how much? If we're at $23 now,
yeah.
we go to 25,
25 is where, yep,
we're still $5 below the belt.
where it
I could see it
was.
going 25.99 and being at $26, but like
Mm-hmm,
if you're looking at your financials and you're saying $30 a month is too expensive for our consumers, and now you're looking at putting out a console that's probably going to be $1,000. Let's
yeah,
just, okay, which also sounds like it will be too expensive
yep.
for their consumers. Where are you as a business seeing what number is too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get there, what do you do?
Right. Right. Like
Right?
when you said,
Like
like they got to be seeing the people canceling, and maybe it is they're getting in for a month, sticking around for the month, and then bowing out afterwards for it. Pretty sure probably some of those influxes of things that they hadn't seen necessarily in the
mhm.
past probably pushed it that way. And then of course, people hopping online and talking about it. I mean, don't get me wrong, people are going to complain and moan about like any of those type of things, but as they look at, like, obviously the video game landscape is going to be different than that of all the other streaming services, but at the same time you got to be like, well, you know what, people are figuring out which ones of these streaming services they're going to put their money in, and you could technically loop Game Pass like into that as a streaming service for games. um it's probably
On
for
it
them.
is that this is sort of a quick fix slash,
Mm-hmm.
and that as confusing and convoluted as a lot of the different tiers be,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to see another structural change to the tiers, like what
Mm-hmm.
options there are. Do I think that there will be a $30 tier? I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I really think there's going to be a $30 tier. And I think that they're going to have to get to a place where they're like, I think it may get to a place where it's kind of like what Amazon Prime does. So like
Mm-hmm.
if you log into Amazon Prime, right? Like have Prime just because they have it for shipping, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you get Amazon Prime Video with it. If you log into Prime Video is literally showing you, oh, here's stuff that's available on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
Here's stuff that's available. You can subscribe through us to them and view everything through our platform, right?
Right.
Prime becomes a gateway even to other streaming platforms, but it kind of actually allows you to sort of piecemeal. Like I have Prime, these other things that are in this one place, and I can
Mm-hmm.
go there. At some point, when you look at all the other stuff, right? Like I have the benefit of the Fortnite, like they, but
You don't
I
play
don't use it.
Fortnite.
I don't play Fortnite. I don't use it. I don't
Wish you
get the
could
V
give me
Bucks. I
those
don't
V Bucks
utilize
you
the V
got.
Bucks, right? But like, but if I don't want that,
Mm-hmm.
maybe don't make me pay for it.
Yeah, that could
You
be a
understand what I'm
different play.
saying? Like I think it's cool that those things are included, but I also think that being able to say, if you want Ubisoft Plus, you can add Ubisoft Plus. If
Yeah.
you want EA, you can add EA. If you want the Battle Pass for Fortnite, you can add the Battle Pass for Fortnite, and they have to do something to still make the incentive worth it,
Yeah.
because the Battle Pass is $10 or $12 a month, and technically getting that for free is a big deal. But it also is like it doesn't do me any good. So
Right.
being able to push it to end up at $30 or even possibly more, if you want to add those things in, I think is kind of where this has to go.
Mm-hmm.
Like there needs to be the piecemeal in some of these other things. There are some pieces of it that I feel like should just stay, because like the EA pass thing was always a part of the Ubisoft thing. Maybe it fluctuates. I think if they can get like on PC, they have the whole deal with Riot. I think if they can get or especially with the new console coming out and that being more like a PC, if you're able to take advantage of that there, like I do think that the new console shake some things up and
Mm-hmm.
allow things to happen that you just couldn't
Couldn't do
do
before.
before. And so I think that's automatically going to change the possibility of what tiers might be available to you. Kind of like we talked about before. If you're playing on PC, again, PC Game Pass almost gives you all the same games, right? It's not as many games. I think it's like 900 games in Game Pass Ultimate on console, and I think it's like 500 games or whatever, something like that, that are available in right?
Mm-hmm.
But if the new Xbox is technically a PC, why would I pay you know what I mean, the extra if I'm not getting something out of it? You kind of get best of both worlds. So
Mm-hmm.
I think we're gonna see some other changes. I think right now they have to work through what that is and then be able to say, we're dropping this new system because this new system can do these things.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the new system, you can do these things in Game Pass that you maybe couldn't before, right?
Beforehand.
And it's gonna cost you. But we'll see. I think it's a really good move. I think it's super strong. I don't know what it does in terms of getting people to sign back up or
Mm-hmm.
making people excited, but it is look, normally they announce an increase and they're like, the increase is happening in like 2 weeks or something like that. And they kind of give you a little bit of time to whatever. Announcing a decrease and being like, nah, we just did
Happening
it
right
today.
now.
Like it's
And it's
already,
working.
yeah, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Again, I just think it's super good. Um, we'll see where it goes. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? From here. Hook me up.
Number two.
This doesn't really have anything to do with me, jokes. Number two is really all you, bro. Like I don't, WrestleMania invaded my space over the
Of
weekend.
course.
Um, and whatever, you know what I mean? Like exciting times, I suppose, but I don't have to suppose because I have you to tell me.
Yep.
Talk to me about WrestleMania 42, bro. Like, what are your overall thoughts on the 2 day event that
Event on it.
was WrestleMania 42?
WrestleMania 42, I would definitely say was enjoyable. By all means, I wouldn't necessarily say that this was a top 10 WrestleMania. I definitely think there were
Mhm.
some cool things that happened during the event. Definitely kept you
Hold on, bro.
engaged.
This it doesn't even break the top 10.
I wouldn't say this breaks the top 10.
Okay.
Like, I think there were some great things. Like, going into Mania, you got to make those matches really feel like some of those stipulations and things really truly mean something. And I didn't
Yeah.
necessarily fully get that with a lot of matches. There were definitely some that were like, oh snap, we've kind of built a little bit more. Like, I'm sure you guys by now have seen, me posting about Cody versus Randy. Like, there was a lot building on that. Like, that's a whole years, decade worth of type of build that we got to. And obviously, things don't always play that well where you can create a scenario like that. But in this case, something like that did. Um, you do have to pivot when you do have injuries and things like that happen where you change some of your matches that happen on there. And definitely that was something we saw during this Mania.
Mm.
Uh, I wouldn't say like any of the matches were bad. By all means, I think they went off without a hitch. I just feel like some of the matches didn't necessarily give you that, oh man, is that WrestleMania type moment. Obviously, a
Mm.
championship changing hands. Cool. On a WrestleMania, it
More to you as a consumer, or does it of the content, or does it mean more to the person who's getting it because they did it at a WrestleMania?
it's a
You
little
know what
bit
I
of
mean?
both.
Like,
I think it's a little
okay,
bit of both because when you see
what do you think makes it actually makes it special for you as a viewer that a
seeing it from my perspective when like a championship, like I look at it and this is kind of some of the same how I like to still piece in that for it. But when you change a championship at WrestleMania, I feel like it makes you championship on a different level. Winning the championship
hmm,
on like, a Raw or a SmackDown, it's cool. They won the championship on weren't expecting. But winning it on a WrestleMania stage really, really puts you in the light and puts you, hey, listen, the biggest stage out there possible for you to win it on. And I feel like being able to see that
so it's
from
a
my,
nod. Is that only had the belt before? Is it, you know what I mean? Like if it's somebody who has won a belt
mm,
before or has won a belt at changing back, do you feel like it has that same kind of impact when
I, f- I feel
like
like it
is
can.
WrestleMania not stand out as a top 10 WrestleMania because like maybe we didn't break any new ground, like we didn't really turn somebody, like all the superstars are the same superstars we've had. Like we didn't really get somebody who did become a champion who maybe we didn't expect, or you know what I mean? Like,
No, I wouldn't say that. Like, not even. I would say they were very meaningful, and one of them
okay.
actually stood without even having a championship.
Hmm.
And I'll get into, but
Yeah.
taking Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar.
Hmm.
Now, Obafemi, of course, NXT has done some amazing things, but to be able to not only one have your debut on a WrestleMania stage of like a Brock Lesnar, and then to beat Brock Lesnar, I
Hmm.
think is a big significant step. Decide how they feel about you. Now retirement piece and things like I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but
Hmm.
to essentially kind of do with Brock Lesnar
Brock Lesnar did to
partially did to the
Undertaker.
Undertaker in the
Hmm.
streak. Obafemi has come in of one of the heaviest hitters probably in the game. I don't know if I necessarily say one of the best to. Brock Lesnar definitely had an impact in different ways in the company,
No two
from
ways
being able to
about
go
that. Yeah.
from WWE to and be like, there's not a lot of people that have had that type of success, and now both of those companies are under the same banner, so it's like it feels different now. But I have to say there was some definite moments like that happened
Hmm.
on the WrestleMania stage that even if he did it, don't get me wrong, on a Raw or SmackDown, it would have felt impactful.
Sure.
But on that WrestleMania stage was amazing.
It
Trick
was different.
Williams, another one fresh to the main roster, coming up from NXT, defeated another
Excuse
veteran
me.
in Sami Zayn for the United States Championship. And similar parallels with Obafemi and Trick, they have this organic growth with the audience. And it's very hard to be able to gain that type of recognition without trying to, force a character to either, maybe do something that they're not comfortable with or jumping into it. But with their two characters that are very unique and being able to get people into those roles, I think really sells a lot of it as well. Um,
Okay.
chanting your don't get me wrong, chanting your name, going with Oba has his entries in the way that he walks in. They even had a sidebar. They had a competition at WWE World that was based off of Oba's walk. And it was like who could do the best Oba Femi walk. Like I think that says something as well too. I don't think you do those small type of things when you don't have something like that with certain ones of your superstars in there. Actually, from seeing some of the match times, initial takes is somewhere super short. I have to compare to past manias, but not understand that.
Hmm.
And that was one of my fears going into night two. One of the biggest matches I thought, and even though it was the second match on the card, was the ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship.
Hmm.
Uh, the first two matches of WrestleMania were actually aired live on regular ESPN.
Right.
So anybody that didn't even order the event, you had a way to at least tune into the first two matches.
Right.
The first match being Brock Lesnar and Obafemi. I didn't think that match was going to be super ridiculously long. But it was one of those things where if they had decided to like say let that match go on for like 20 minutes, even though I didn't 20-25 minutes, the ladder match is something I feel like deserved to have a lot more time, which it ended up getting, but it still was confined to whatever was left after the Oba Brock match because they wanted to make sure at 7 o'clock we were able to shift
You got the
back
cutoff.
to just go back to the paid people that wouldn't spill over for it.
Mm.
So I definitely
Business.
understand that.
That's all business.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hey, we're Disney.
Mm-hmm.
because that's ESPN. Hey, we're Disney, and we want to, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta give us something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say that that's ever happened before. That
Definitely not.
any piece of WrestleMania has been made available to
Any
people who didn't
honestly
pay.
any pay-per-views. They
Well, that's what I'm
normally had
saying.
like back in the day Sunday Night Heat, and sometimes that would play before the pay-per-view, and you get those little pre-show, but that's not saying like no, this
It's
was
not the same
actually
thing,
Mania happening on a regular
right?
broadcasting station that people
Which
could get
again,
access
as
to.
you are wrestling, as it were,
Mm-hmm.
um, available to muggles, bringing in the muggles, you got to feed them something, right? Because
Yeah.
even as people are kind of watching, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're in a place where they're like, there are plenty of, like boxing on a Saturday night because it's on ESPN,
Mm-hmm.
but aren't necessarily shelling out the money to pay for a pay per view for a head doing that. So having WWE wrestling available on a format like, but for it to be like, here's what a WrestleMania looks like. See this running, they will run ads. They will put millions of dollars. This will be on ESPN. It will be on again. They will put a marketing budget behind this to make it a thing. And what they will do is they will try to outspend going into Dune in
Yeah.
order to compete. Like there's no two ways about it. And I still think they're gonna flinch and they're gonna move. I still think they're gonna move it up a week. I still think they're gonna do it. We'll see. Fake though. That's not a real thing.
I don't. Yeah.
I'm almost positive that was made by AI. We'll get into that a little later.
I'd to upgrade the audio and things specifically for Doomsday or something when it comes. Like I don't know. I could see a more realistic play, but like, hey, listen, this has a big screen in here. It sounds good. You should go see it in this theater. And we're gonna try to do it.
Saying, bro. They're saying in order to see this in the best way possible, you need to experience it
Mm-hmm.
in Infinity Vision. They took the words of the title of their most successful movie ever, and the character that we're waiting for
For
to show up somewhere. Where is White Vision? And them two words together. Dog, I'm telling you, that joint is AI generated. Infinity Vision? Stop playing with me. They made that up. It's made up, dog. I'm convinced. Anyway, that does it for this week's W. Of this week sprinkled all in because some of this stuff happened today,
mm-hmm.
which is beautiful when we can do this for you live and talk about it right here, and right now. We gotta talk more about WrestleMania.
We gotta do some more WrestleMania talk.
I don't mean to. We gotta talk about your top 5 moments from WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
Let's lay it out on the line, bro. A great moment in not just in a wrestling event, but specifically in WrestleMania.
Definitely for me, it's like moments that we didn't expect. I feel like is what
Okay.
really plays into it. Been a match. It could have just
Mhm.
been a specific moment, a return, something that was just not real. Matches, they're great. You can watch a match, it's good, but when you can do something that necessarily we weren't expecting or played out the way that you really wanted it to in a different fashion, I think those are the type of things that play into having a great moment that could possibly happen.
All right, I'm with it. Now that I know what constitute those moments, tell me what the top 5 are.
I dig it. So my number 5, I gotta go with Brock
Mm.
retiring, and I'm gonna come back to the screen. Uh, Retiring because I there's some things
Mm-hmm.
we already knew that SummerSlam of this year was going to be in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which of course, hometown, and
Yeah.
everyone was expecting, oh, you know what? Brock is going to make it to SummerSlam. This is going to hang up the boots, call it a career.
Right.
But the shift turned, and for whatever reason, we saw Brock hang up the boots. He took off his boots, he took off his gloves, left him in the ring, and we saw a side of Brock Lesnar that typically we don't see on camera. And that is,
Mm.
cheering, waving to the fans, dapping the fans up as he's walking out. Like when you see that type of thing, it's kind of like, oh snap! Like this seems like this is the real legitimate
This,
moment.
this is it. I'm out. Yeah.
And the thought was, he was going to show up on Raw last night, maybe to come out and give us a little bit of an explanation or something like that, because they made it seem like it was going to happen, but it didn't.
Mm.
So, for all intents and purposes, like it seems like Brock Lesnar did hang the boots up. He did on I forget what podcast he was on. They interviewed him, and it's rare to see Brock Lesnar really do an actual like sit down type of interview with anybody, even back in the UFC. But he did a lot of thanking the fans, for supporting him throughout the years and all the time. It's just not something that we're honestly familiar with seeing with Brock Lesnar, which makes it really feel like this is one that's going to stick. Because we've been seeing over the last few months, there's been this similarity of people deciding to step away and retire. And I mean, it's always a great thing when you can step away on your own, under your own power, under your own free will. But it does seem like this is the legitimate. Was Bianca Belair showing up to WrestleMania to announce that she will be having her first child?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bianca, of course, has been out of action for a number of months. Oh, probably a little over a year now. Actually, it has been over a year. She broke her finger at Mania last year, went out, and things apparently, didn't heal right, so put a little dampening on her return time frame. And on our little special edition, we did talk about on the prediction show, we did talk about the idea of maybe, even though Bianca wasn't cleared, her showing up to potentially, show up to make Jade Cargill kind of like, do that double take for a quick second to put you on notice that, you know what, I'm still here, I'm coming back. But she
Mm-hmm.
ended up coming out while John Cena was doing the attendance for WrestleMania, which ended up he had to add one in because she is with
She
child
had an
now for
extra.
it.
Yeah.
So I think this was cool because once again, as someone that's always out in the limelight with others, keeping something like this under wraps to be able to bring it to like the WrestleMania stage to be able to share with the world, it's something that's it's hard to do. So being able to see her come back, even though it wasn't necessarily for a match or anything like that, but to make this announcement to the world, it also puts out there that what, she is going to be gone for a little bit longer, and for those to you know wait a little bit longer. I am going to come back, but it's going to be a little bit long before I show up. So I think that warranted a pretty cool surprise they were able to pull off at WrestleMania.
Cool.
My number 3 has got to go to the return of Paige to the WWE.
Mm.
So Paige, of course, there was a little bit of a falling out with WWE when she was there. Unfortunately, she did have to retire because neck injuries, things of the sort. She was on some form of drugs and things that she wasn't all there of what she needed to be. Of course, she did go to AEW for a brief period of time. She used her real name Saraya. Um, we knew that her contract had come up with AEW, so for her to, they never made a mention of anything. We knew there was always the possibility that she may show back up in WWE, but with things that have happened to her with the company from some years ago. We never knew if the doors were going to be reopened to be able to allow her to come back in. Now, the return that she made, I feel like, was one of those moments where they had to make a pivot, make a decision change, because originally the Bella twins were supposed to be in a match for the women's tag team championships. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, Nikki Bella a couple weeks ago on Raw ended up injuring her ankle and ended up not being medically cleared to actually perform at WrestleMania. So they ended up having Paige fill in for Nikki to partner with Brie to be able to compete in this match. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that was kind of a cool way to be able to reintroduce herself. I'm sure there was probably at some point maybe she was going to end up showing up during one of the women's main championship runs just to
Yeah.
show up, show face, be like, you know what, I'm here. I'm now someone that you're going to have to end up contending with. But I think this was a cool way to be able to bring her back in. I'm sure there's going to be, as soon as Nikki is cleared, I feel like they're going to do some type of swerve where they'll end up attacking her. They'll take the belt. That's a whole nother story. I'm not going to go into all that. But being able to have someone, of course, she was in AEW after the neck injuries, but for WWE to also bring her back, clear her, and be like, you can come out and compete, I think that says a lot. Because for a long time, there were people we did not think Paige was ever going to set foot back in the WWE ring. But after seeing, like, the CM Punk return, Cody coming back, like, there's been different elements of those type of things. Just like, you know what? The door is going to be open for her as well too. So I think that was a pretty solid way to keep it a surprise, even though it was something we were kind of expecting in some shape or form, but not necessarily what the way that they actually did it.
Okay.
My number two has to go to the return of the demon alter ego of Finn Balor. Now, we knew this was coming. They made the announcement, of course, with the match change. It could have been something they could have just kept on the wrap and done as a surprise. But the reason why this is a real big moment on my list, a couple years ago, Finn Balor used the demon persona to take on Edge before he left the company, and he lost as Demon Finn Balor. So, for those that are not familiar, the demon is Finn Balor's alternate persona that's supposed to be like, you can't beat him. This is you've pushed this man into a corner. He's had to pull this version of himself out of the closet to be able to take on whatever force that it may be. And you shouldn't. You're going to get dominated. It's going to be a thing. But over the oh, hold on. Let me throw this up. Your top five is sus. The spots during the IC ladder match for someone that watched for free definitely needs to make the list. Listen, I'm not mad at that. Put it this way: for me, when I hear of a ladder match on WrestleMania, to me, I feel like it's an expectation. Like, so that's one of those reasons why it didn't necessarily make my list. It
An
was one of my
expectation of what? What do you mean?
of being a great match. Because normally with these type of ladder matches, you include those stars that will excel at being able to put on an excellent ladder match. There's only one person in that match that was a little bit weird placement with Rusev, because everybody else in there was essentially either a luchador or a high flyer.
Right.
So I already have high expectations for that match. And I knew going into it, it was going to be grand. So just for me personally, it didn't make my top five because I was already at the expectation that that was going to be the thing. And I didn't
So
think
it's
I
not a
needed
top
to.
five ladder match anyway.
Mm,
Yeah, that's crazy.
I don't know if I would put it in the top five. I would say maybe it would sit right outside. I would say this match was good. Good spots. Um, Good interactions. Nobody got hurt. So that's always, hey, listen, that's always a good
That's
thing
always
coming
a
out of a
plus.
match like that. Um, but just because my expectations is the reason why I really didn't make my top five as one of those moments. Because I just, in my heart, I knew that match was going to be good. I knew it was going to be that was going to probably be number one or number two. Easy.
Right. But this was just top five moments.
Moments. If I was
I get
doing
that.
easily, easily one of the best matches of the cards both nights.
That's a solid distinction. I think that I think Cuddy would be happy with that distinction. I dig that. Look, let's move a little bit into honor. I we got some things we got to put a pin in. There's some other things that kind of happened over the last few days. I joked a little bit about it when talking about Infinity Vision. You know, Disney has come out and said that effects in Doomsday will be AI generated.
Yeah,
They literally just laid off
the whole
basically their entire. I mean, a guy like Andy Park, who has basically been
there
there
almost
from the very beginning, no longer there, out behind laying all those people off and saying, people are just gonna have to deal with it. They're gonna have to get used to it. It's a very different thing, and it's one of those things we'll just have to talk about a little bit more later. Apple has a new CEO, jokes. Blue. Man, Tim Cook ain't in the spot no more. It's John Turnus now is the Apple CEO. It's an interesting shift that happened really quickly and kind of came out of nowhere, and I don't really think the industry was expecting. We'll put a pin in that. To close out this weekend, I'm gonna shoot up to 4 State. Happen to be there. If you're around, if you're in the area, it's in Hagerstown. By all means, holler at me if you see me. Time there. It's the first time that I've been. It's been around for quite some time, and it usually falls like right in between or right around the other conventions and stuff like that we normally have to go to. And so people have been telling us for years that we should go and we need to check it out. And because some of the other bigger conventions like a BlurCon and AwesomeCon moved to the beginning of March, free some things up. So I'm going to check it out this weekend. So expect to hear me talking about what my time was like at 4 State when we come back next Tuesday. But that's what I'll be doing this weekend. We have a new episode of The Finisher coming out Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. We just dropped the one. Yeah, next Wednesday.
So if you're not already following the Finisher podcast, please do so across everything. The Instagram, make sure you're checking that out. We're dropping a lot of content around that. So if you're into the wrestling thing, if you're not in our wrestling chat on Facebook, maybe get at a little peep. Facebook's doing they're making a weird pivot, and people who seem to have like gone away from it seem to be swinging back that way. It's an interesting thing. Maybe that's something we'll put a pin in and talk about later too. Joe, you got anything else?
Other than that,
yeah.
And then tomorrow
I'm
morning,
behind, but I'll catch up.
Tomorrow morning is the last episode of the season for Invincible.
Oh, I know.
It just hurts my soul when this ends.
They just need to announce the next season starting as soon as the joint's over. That's all I need.
Give it to us in fall, but